What is up, guys? Welcome to my review for Supergirl Season 3. So this season was definitely the best season so far of Supergirl, but that's not really saying much, which is what I'm going to be going over in this review. So with every season review I do on this channel, I mention all the standout episodes of the season, and then I get into the actual review. So the standout episodes of this season were Episode 4, titled The Faithful, Episode 7, titled Wake Up, Episode 8, titled Crisis on Earth X Part 1, Episode 9, titled Rain, Episode 13, titled Both Sides Now, Episode 15, titled In Search of Lost Time, and Episode 23, titled Battles Lost and Won. So with that in mind, let's get into the review of Supergirl Season 3. So, first of all, the first thing that this season already does better than the first two seasons right off the bat is set up the main villain actually pretty well. In the first two seasons, the main villain just came out of nowhere. In the second season, they came out of nowhere. In season 1, it wasn't one main villain, then it was switched with another one. It just wasn't done well. In this season, however, they actually built up the main villain from the beginning, not even from the beginning, from before that, from the cliffhanger of the season 2 finale, and they actually lived up to the promise for the most part with the main villain, which is Rain, and that's just right off the bat something that this season does better than the first two seasons, which should be expected from a TV show, just to, if there's a main villain, to set up the main villain from the start, usually, which is, I just think that it just works better that way if the main villain is set up from the start and just doesn't come out of nowhere. It's weird when they come out of nowhere. So for this season, for Rain to actually be set up from the start, it definitely just makes it already better than the first two seasons. And then Rain as a main villain was actually pretty good. I think for the first 17 episodes, she was just a great main villain. After that, from episodes 18 to 22, she wasn't really around, and for some reason it switched to the witches, the Kryptonian witches, I don't really know what they're called, as the main villains, which I thought was super weird. I'm going to talk about that later in this review. But for the first 17 episodes, Rain was actually a great villain, definitely the best villain of this show so far. And when I say best, I mean by far, because there was Non and then Rhea, and those two are the worst main villains of the Arrowverse in general, and then Rain comes along and she's nowhere near the worst, so that's definitely a huge upgrade for not only the main villain, but also setting up the main villain from the start, off the bat, already better than the first two seasons in those two regards. And then there was other things about Rain, how there were other world killers being introduced, and this was everything. Rain herself was a great main villain, but everything surrounding her was so weird and poorly done. For instance, the world killers being introduced and then just leaving. Like, the first world killer, Purity, was introduced, I think, in episode 13, and then left in episode 17 when she died. I think she died in episode 17, along with Pestilence, who I thought Pestilence was just a terrible character in general, just because the character had no conflict with becoming a villain. Like, most villains, most people who just become a villain, even though they don't have any control over that, which is what these world killers are at this point. She had no conflict, so I thought Pestilence was a terrible villain and character in general. And then Purity, not a bad character, but both of them just left immediately, and they really had no substantial impact on the season aside from Rain getting her powers, like the Sonic Scream and the Pestilence fingernails, but that didn't really impact the season at all, and she didn't even need those powers. So the world killer just not done well. Again, I thought Rain was done really well herself, and I wish they would have stuck to just her, or maybe include the world killers, but like have more of them than just two of them, and have them be around for the entirety of the season, and just have Rain be the leader of them. That would have worked a lot better than introducing the world killers and then just killing them off immediately for Rain to get their powers. So I thought, like I said, like world killers not done very well. Rain herself definitely done well. Another thing that was not done well in terms of something that was surrounding Rain was the whole thing with the dark witches and Kryptonians, which I will talk about later in the review, because that is later in the season. So the next thing I want to talk about for the season are the Legion of Superheroes. So the Legion of Superheroes were introduced in the season. I think people were probably expecting them to show up ever since Mon-El showed up in season 2, because he is a prominent member of the Legion in the comics, and especially when he went to that portal at the end of season 2, that was basically setting up the Legion. And as for the setup being paid off, I thought it was paid off pretty well, because the Legion of Superheroes were honestly probably the best part of this season, just the best addition to the Arrowverse from this season, and that's probably true. There's not really much else this season added to the universe, or to the multiverse in general. But I think the Legion of Superheroes were a great addition. All three characters from the Legion were I mean, not all three of them are great characters. Saturn Girl didn't really get much to do in terms of just being a character. All she was there for drama with Mon-El and Supergirl, and her powers weren't utilized to the extent that they could, but I think that could happen in the future if the Legion of Superheroes ever gets their own TV show, which I think it might, just going off how season 3 ended, I think it actually might, and they could just do more with that and other characters, like more than 3 characters. They only introduced 3 characters from the Legion. The other 2 characters were one, Brainiac 5, who I thought initially I didn't really like the way he looked, but I really got used to it, and I thought he was just a great character. The way the actor acted was very similar to Ezra Miller in Justice League, which definitely works for Brainiac 5, does not work for Barry Allen at all. And then there was Mon-El, who was not introduced in this season, obviously, but he did become a new character in the superhero, and I think that was done really well, and he's just become a much better character, and his costume is awesome and very comic accurate. So I think if the Legion of Superheroes in general, just the best addition to the Arrowverse from this season, and probably the best part of the season in general, just like exploring the Legion and everything they're about. And I really want to see more of them in the future. We're probably not going to see much of them in the next season, but if they get their own TV show, that would be awesome. So I thought this season was doing a pretty great job up until episode 18. After episode 18, from episode 19 till 22, which is 4 episodes in a row, the season actually sucked. There was 4 episodes in a row that were just terrible. It's kind of like the opposite of Arrow season 6, where it was a bunch of episodes in a row that were just not very good, and then I wouldn't say bad, but not great, and then there were a bunch of episodes in a row that were actually pretty great. It's like the opposite here, where the first 18 episodes are, I wouldn't say great, but definitely good, and then 4 episodes in a row that are just terrible. Episode 18 was just real bad, episode 19 bad, 20 bad, 21 was the worst episode of Supergirl ever, and I'm not even kidding about that. And then the whole reason, the reason really that these episodes were bad, other than the obvious things, were the fact that it deviated and they went to Argo City. That had this whole storyline of Supergirl going to Argo City, which on paper sounds interesting, but not this late in the season, and definitely not how it was handled. I think this is something you should do at the beginning of the season, just because the season really suffered from deviating from the main plot and going to Argo City, and it wasn't really deviating from the main plot because it went into the main plot, but that was in episode 20. In episode 21, it 100% deviated from the main plot. They were just there just to be there, which is so stupid. That whole episode really subtracted from the season in general, and really them going to Argo City is why I stopped reviewing the season, just because I honestly lost interest in the season. After episode 19, I still watched it in general, but I didn't review anything. I don't think I actually reviewed episode 19. After episode 18, like I said, episode 19, 21, 22, and 20, and episode 19, 20, 21, and 22, those episodes were really bad, and I just didn't want to review it just because I lost interest in the season, which is something that is just not good. For the first 18 episodes, I really cared about the season because of everything they were doing with Reign and the Legion of Superheroes, but after that, I kind of lost interest, which really, even though the season average of this season is not really affected by those episodes that much. I mean, it definitely is, but not a crazy amount. The fact that it really made me lose interest in the season will make the season score go down a lot more than it should because of these 4 episodes. It's just 4 episodes, but the fact that it's in a row and near the end of the season really subtracts from the season in general. So I thought this whole Argo City thing, them going to Argo City, everything about it, everything surrounding those episodes were just so bad that it made me lose interest in the season, which is definitely the worst part about the season. And honestly, those 4 episodes were probably the worst episodes of the show ever, especially episode 21. So I talked about Reign, but I didn't talk about Samantha Arias earlier in this video, which is what I'm going to do right now. I thought Samantha Arias, she wasn't really the main villain, she was more of a supporting character, and Reign was the main villain. It's weird how they did that, but I thought it paid off really well, and for the conflict between Samantha and Reign, how she didn't really want to be a villain, I thought that was handled really well. Her daughter Ruby was not a very good character this season, and really, whenever she was on screen, I didn't really care at all, but Samantha Arias I thought was a pretty good conflicted character. Well, she herself wasn't very conflicted, but her conflict with Reign was definitely done really well, and everything setting up Reign with her was again set up really well, like I said earlier in this video, with the main villain of the season definitely being a good one and being set up pretty well. So I mentioned how this season is a huge upgrade from the last 2 seasons in most aspects of the season. One thing it does worse though, than especially season 2 and I guess season 1, but not really season 1, and that is that Superman never appears in this season outside of the season finale where he appeared on a screen in the background, and it was also blurred out and more focused on Guardian than it was on Superman, and that's really a shame for 2 reasons. One, Superman is probably the best character on this show, which is insane because he's only appeared 4 times, but in my opinion, he was the best version of Superman in any live action form, which might be a controversial opinion, but it is my opinion, so I definitely wanted to see more of that character. And 2 is that the Legion of Superheroes appeared in this season, like I said earlier, and Superman is so connected to the Legion of Superheroes and so much more connected than Supergirl. The Legion of Superheroes are just more of a Superman thing than they are Supergirl. They definitely are a Supergirl thing. Supergirl has had a bunch of stories with the Legion, but they are much more connected to Superman than really any other DC character there is. So the fact that they showed up and Superman didn't was a little weird. Even in this universe, they're definitely connected. Superman has a Legion ring in the Fortress of Solitude in this universe, so we know they met, and he has a ring, which means he's at least an honorary mention of the Legion. So the fact that they never met in this season was a little weird. Also, how the Legion of Superheroes was changed completely to fit more Supergirl than it was Superman was a little annoying to me, and I mean a little just because I'm fine with some changes sometimes, but really my point here is that Superman never appeared, and he 100% should have. So I said episodes 1 through 18 were good. Well, not all of them were good. There were some bad ones, but there was never 2 in a row that were bad. And then there were 19 to 22, which is 4 episodes in a row that were just real bad. And then there was the season finale, which I thought was actually a pretty good season finale. I didn't review it because I lost interest in reviewing the season after episode 18, after episode 19 really, so I didn't review it, but I definitely thought it was good. I thought basically everything it tried to do was good. I felt like it really was trying to set up a Legion of Superheroes TV show with Brainiac as the main villain of season 1 because of how Brainiac 5 stayed back in the present day because AI are in danger in the future, because like I said, he said a distant relative of his, the evil one, was spared, which could be Indigo, Brainiac 8, but I'm pretty sure he's talking about Brainiac, the Superman villain. So I think that would be a great TV show to happen. But the season finale was definitely a great season. I wouldn't say great. It was good, and it was one of the standout episodes of the season. Not an amazing episode or anything. I didn't like the time travel part. I thought that was just there to fill the 40 minutes of the episode because it just did not need to happen, and the way they went about it was really weird. But in general, I thought this finale was definitely a good ending to the season. And then there was the cliffhanger, which I think is either like Dark Supergirl or maybe a version of Power Girl they're using. I don't really know, but I thought the season finale was a pretty good season finale, a pretty good ending to the season after 4 pretty terrible episodes, and that was after 18 episodes ranging from bad to great, mostly good though. So at the end of every season review, I bring together all the scores from the videos or the episodes I reviewed over the season, and then I bring them together, bring a season average and then a season score, which might differ from the season average. It usually does. And this season, I didn't review every episode like I did for Arrow Season 6, Flash Season 4, and Legends of Tomorrow Season 3, but I definitely did give scores to each episode. And just for reference, the scores for episode 19 through 23 were episode 19.6, episode 27.6, episode 21.4, episode 22, 6.7, and episode 23, 9 out of 10. So the average score, taking all those episodes together along with the first 18 episodes and bring them together and bring the average score of this season is 8.0 or 8 out of 10. But like I said earlier, the fact that 4 episodes in a row were bad and made me lose interest in the season, like I said, it didn't really affect the season average as much as it should have. So the season score is not 8 out of 10, it's 7.8 out of 10. But let me know what you think about the season in the comments down below. Let me know your score for the season in the comments down below and how it holds up to both the first 2 seasons of Supergirl and the other Arrowverse shows this year in the comments down below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching.